Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show. I'm Cyrus, and I'm looking forward to drinking some wine with you this evening.
And I'm Brittany, and I'm feeling quite flowery.
Oh, yeah?
I could blossom at any moment.
Ooh. Well, our garden certainly is blossoming. So
It is spring after all.
Today, we will be reviewing two wines from France.
Whoa, this is right up your alley.
Yes, and as usual, I brought a white.
And I brought a red.
Intro.
Wow.
So, Brittany, what do you have for us today?
So for our red today, we have a 2019 Côtes du Rhône called Cuvée Maclura.
Cool.
Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, sounds great.
So it's from Chateau Pegot,
Yeah, nice.
which comes in at 14.5% alcohol.
Yeah.
And this is a GSM blend, but it heavily favors Grenache at like 60%. So it also has some Cinsault, which is a small percentage of the wine.
Yeah, and Domaine Pegot or Chateau Pegot is really famous. So really cool that we got our hands on a bottle of it for
they
price.
seem to have done this for a very long time, like 50 plus years, and they have a huge vineyard, like over 100 acres of just grapes.
Yep, and they have both the Côte du Rhône side as well as the Châteauneuf-du-Pape side. So you can kind of find wines from both sides. Obviously, the Côte du Rhône side is going to be much less expensive, and that's why we have this one.
Yes, I think it was about $15.
Right, as opposed to 50. So, well, cool. One last thing I wanted to mention about this one, because we just looked this up. I was wondering what cuvée meant on the bottle, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this in an episode, 2 seasons ago or whatever. But it means blend in this context. So this is the Maclura blend of the various grapes that they have. So do you want to describe the bottle for folks?
Sure. I mean, it's very sort of regal. It kind of has. Is that a unicorn?
That is a unicorn, yeah.
It has like a unicorn and a liony, weaselly type of animal. I don't know, but it has a crown and then maybe some sort of regal sign on it.
Yeah, it looks like a coat of arms to me.
Yes, and it kind of looks like the paper is like an old map almost with the wavy paper.
Sure, the edges of the paper are not cut straight.
Yes. Which gives it a cool element, I think. It's not super bland.
Yeah, for sure. Well, why don't we get it open?
Yes. So the first thing I noticed as I was pouring, it looks quite muddy.
What do you mean?
It almost looked brown, but it also looks purple. It's just this weird muddy color.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely purple. Kind of like a gemstone purple, So I get what you're saying, muddy. It's got like a dark tint to it.
Like, look at the edge. It almost looks brown.
Yeah, we really need a white paper to compare against, right? White background. Yeah, really interesting. I guess I would have expected it to be a little more red, as like other Côte du Rhônes we've had have been a little more red. But I guess this one is more Grenache, so maybe that's where the color's coming from.
Yeah. Should we take some smells?
Let's do it.
Great.
Well, it's certainly really meaty, almost fishy. It's got like some spices to it. The classic thing we say is like woody or like cedary tinderbox kind of deal, which smells awesome. Not too much fruit, but it's like dark berries for sure, and plum probably. Honestly, it's a very complex nose, which is really cool, and it's got me excited.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's a lot going on here. It's sort of like I was smelling almost gravel and dirtiness. It smells dirty, but in a good way. And I get cherry notes in there, and then it almost feels like I'm smelling paprika. Like it has that spicy note to it, paprika or cinnamon, something that
Cinnamon,
really
yeah, that's
tickles.
exactly it.
Yes,
Cinnamon. That's a really good way.
It's really cool. I really like spicy type of wines. I think I remember that one from Chile that had quite a kick and spiciness to it. I love those kind of elements, so I'm really excited. Okay, are we on for the tasting?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned the alcohol percentage. You probably did, and I just blanked it out. But
14.5.
I'm definitely tasting the alcohol here. I didn't smell it, but it's got a little the heat from the alcohol. It's got some nice tannins. It's like structured, but they're not like overwhelming. It's super. All of those kind of dirty, gravelly notes and stuff like that are still coming through on the taste, but I wasn't getting the cherry on the smell as much. I'm definitely getting the cherry on the taste, and there's some acidity, although it's not crazy acidic, just a little bit, which is nice. What do you think?
I think a lot, Cyrus. So, to start, tart, cherry. That's what I'm getting. Immediately, first sip, it tasted dirty, but I mean, good dirty. Definitely spicy. It's almost like hot. It's almost like chilies.
I think the alcohol's giving it some
kick, which is interesting. In the the aftertaste is giving me copper.
Sure.
It tastes like pennies.
Yeah, the like kind of little bloody taste there.
Bloody.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also it's a pretty long wine, especially compared to what we've had so far this season.
The taste is still in my mouth. It's surrounding it. And it's interesting because it's not as whole bodied as I anticipated it would be. It's sort of medium to me. Mm-hmm. And it is dry, but yeah, the taste is still there.
Yeah, definitely still got the dark fruits, and it's super complex. There's all of those baking spices like the cinnamon still coming through. Still has the woodiness. It's definitely spent some time in wood, and it's got like it's probably fresh new oak because it's got a little of that spicy, like cedary thing that we were smelling.
It's making me think of the cinnament challenge. Have you ever done that?
No.
Where you put a spoon?
I know what it is.
I just spit. Where you put a spoonful of cinnamon in your mouth?
Yeah, I know what it is. I've seen people do it. I have never done it.
I've done it.
Nor have I any interest in doing it.
It's terrible. Don't do it.
But this is not that bad. This is not like that. This is, in fact, quite good.
But it gives me a ton of cinnamon, a ton of spice, a little bit of dryness. So it sort of reminds me of it. It's a little inkling. But it has all those other different flavors from the different types of grape varieties. So it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. This is easily my favorite red so far on the season.
Whoa. I would say second or third. It's between those two right now.
I feel like you haven't liked the reds that much this season.
No, but there was...
So you don't like this very much at all then?
Stop. Stop being so negative. We like wine. So I think this falls behind chili. I think chili is my top contender right now.
Okay.
Because it gives me a little bit more mildness. This one is just way in the deep end of just crazy wild reds, which is cool every once in a while, but chili is a great safe bet for something that's a little more, mild and spicy and interesting.
Yeah, I guess I just like the tannins here. We haven't had any super tannic wine this season, and this has that, and that's something that I want in a wine. So in like a red. So that's why it kind of edges out for me as the top spot.
Great.
Well, Brittany, France is massive, so we could have chosen wine from anywhere. But do you want to try and sum up some of why France is a good place to grow wine? And
so, I think, as most of us know, France is one of the most influential places for wine. It has a lot of really famous subregions, especially there's the Rhone Valley, and then there's Loire Valley?
The Loire, yeah.
Loire Valley. And this one is from the Rhone Valley. Some of the subregions are even more famous because they have wines that are named after them. You know, like Champagne, Bordeaux wine, or Burgundy wines. Those are different subregions in France. But then there are less known regions that provide sort of cheaper wines, but they're also good. There's one region named Languedoc.
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 Yeah.
Languedoc, which it's a great example. It's one of the largest producers in France for wine.
By volume or by area?
By volume. They produce a third of France's wine.
Oh, geez.
So it's quite a lot.
Wow.
And they mostly produce red blends. So like Syrah or Grenache or Mourvedre or Kenyon?
I don't know.
Carignan.
Oh, sure. like from the Chile episode that we had.
Yes, exactly. I'm not getting great at pronouncing these things. But still, these subregions are still pretty cool. Even the ones that we don't know much about, they're still really great wine regions.
Yeah, I would say Languedoc is like one of the most underrated, just quality for value, right? Like if you're looking for a really good quality wine for under $20, that might be one of my like top regions in the world to get wine from.
And they're cheap, which is great.
Right, because no one knows about the name, right? So like you're paying for the name. When we have a Côte du Rhône.
Or Champagne.
Right, or Champagne, exactly. That's
crazy.
Right. That's probably the best example of what it's like, add $50 to the price tag and then
Champagne, lower your prices. I'm looking at you.
Overall impressions of this wine?
Good.
Yeah.
It's quite a surprise. It's a lot more crazy than I thought it would be. I don't know if crazy is the word, but it's just one of the most surprising ones, I think.
Yeah. I guess I'm less surprised maybe because I kind of expected this to be a bolder style wine, but
wow.
But I really enjoyed it, and I liked it even better than some other Côte du Rhône that we've had in the past. So maybe I just like the Grenache. I don't know. This one's heavy on that, and maybe that's what's doing it for me. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't really get just Grenache wine.
Not really.
So
it's a blending wine. So
I'd be interested to see if there's any just Grenache variety wines out there.
Alrighty. Well, with that, we will go to a short break, and when we return, we will have the white wine. Oof. So much cat hair just came out when I did that.
That's my blend.
Ooh. Little one, little the other. Blend.
Oh.
No. Screw recording a podcast. I'm here for the wine. You saw nothing. The struggle is real. Welcome back, everybody. So I have brought a white wine.
What? Okay. What have you brought?
I know. I brought a 2019 Chablis. It is a Domaine de Varou, and it is 12.5% alcohol by volume. And Chablis is a region that's best known for Chardonnay grapes, and this is no exception. Chardonnay. And Chablis is generally an unoaked style and usually like pretty minerally for Chardonnay. And also a pretty expensive region in general. It's one of those kind of well-known regions, so you pay for the name, as we were talking about in the last section. So, pretty excited for this. I like Chablis in general. So
wait, it's a Chardonnay?
Right. So French wines are labeled by region, not by grape. So this is a Chablis.
Confused.
But the grapes in it are all Chardonnay.
Okay.
So, it's really interesting they do that. The only place, I think, in France that does the opposite is the Alsace, which is right on the border with Germany, that does label its grapes. But for the most part, almost all of the other ones are just labeled by where it's from. And you know what grapes are in it because every grape that's grown there is Chardonnay.
Okay.
So the bottle is pretty plain label. It's got a little picture of the vineyard on it, and with kind of like a gold imprints. And it's got Domaine de Barou in green. And honestly, I mean, it looks kind of what you'd expect from like a old French label. It's got
poked myself. Why is everything out for me today?
And it's got a little Chablis AOC, which means it's from Chablis. So, pretty simple, but pretty classic, and definitely drew me to it. Partly for it being a Chablis, and partly for it being in our price range, which isn't always easy to find for Chablis. So, let's pour some glasses. Well, right away, it's a pretty light color. There's some vague cloudiness, potentially from bubbles.
I do see very, very faint, small bubbles.
And I think that's probably just the wine off-gassing from being, under pressure.
Under pressure.
Does off-gassing really get you?
Off-gassing?
Yeah, it's where the gas is coming out of the wine after it's been in suspension.
That's what I'm going to say the next time I'm off-gassing.
Cool, thanks for that. Well, I'm going to smell it and not the off-gassing.
Okay.
Well, I get lemon. I get kind of like a whey or yogurt curd kind of smell going on. That's kind of the big things for me. It's a lot less appley and pear than a lot of Chardonnay, which is cool. It's minerally. It's living up to the Chablis name entirely so far with the smell.
Yeah, I think I am getting sort of apple, but a very sweet apple, almost like green apples maybe. Green apple, and then definitely some lemon. And then I get some delicate flowers in there. I'm not sure. Vanilla-y. It smells sort of sweet, but I don't anticipate that it'll taste sweet.
Yeah, I think it could actually go along the lines of some of those Sauvignon Blancs that we had last week, where it smells kind of sweet on the nose, but ends up being much less sweet on the taste. But let's see.
Sure. This is delicious.
It is.
I think it's my number one white of the season so far.
It's got to be up there for me, too.
It's warm and toasty, but not oaky. It does have vanilla in it. It's long. It's just delicious, and it's making me salivate.
Sorry to get one more sip. That's so good.
Chug it. It's so good.
Yeah, the lemon definitely comes through from the nose, but also that apple. And there's also something almost like you said, warm. Like I was going to say bready, warm bread kind of deal.
I agree. Yeah.
Which is really interesting in kind of in a Chardonnay and a Chablis. And it's that buttery kind of thing that you almost always associate with oak, but apparently this is unoaked. So the winemaker's done an amazing job with the grape.
Incredible. Just used all the wonderful elements of this grape to make such a warm and inviting white wine.
I would also say this is like, more than medium bodied. It's not like full bodied because it's still a Chardonnay, it's still a white, but it's more than medium bodied. It's up there. It's got kind of a full mouthfeel.
Yes, it definitely fills your mouth. It has that acidity that fills your mouth with saliva in a good way. It just makes you want to have just more.
Yeah. And there's something, I think this is what I was smelling, that like curdiness that's like a little salty almost, or like not quite to the level of something like Assortico or something, Mediterranean like that, but it's got a little minerality, a little complexity there. Some like chalkiness almost.
Yes, and I don't really get apple out of the taste. I do get more lemon out of this one. But it's very pleasant. It's lemony, but it's not too tart to the point where it's uncomfortable. It's just a warm lemon, like baked good. It's so good.
I love Chablis in general, the few I've had, but they've always been $40-$50, and so I don't get to try very often. I've only had 2 others in my life or whatever.
How much is this one?
This one was 20, so
not bad.
Yeah. So I'm super excited that I got to try one and that it was just as good as I remember.
Best bang for your buck, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I have a few more kind of French facts.
Tell me
to
more.
throw your way.
Yes.
French wine, especially wine that's grown like on all of the rivers throughout France, and that's like all of those valleys you mentioned at the beginning, are especially kind of weather dependent. So the way I like to describe it is like in California, it's going to be warm every year, but French wines vary a lot more with the vintage. So year to year, you get a lot more kind of variation because they're on these rivers and the kind of climate, it changes a lot more. So the reason you might hear wine snobs talking about what year things are happening in, or like the vintage of the wine or what vintages are good, is because they're talking about the growing conditions in the place that year. And for some, for really good winemakers, they can mitigate that a little more because they're just really good at getting the best out of their grapes. But like for a lot of the wine in the price range that we're drinking, it means it varies a lot more. So a good example is I think it was season 1, we got to try a couple wines from 2003. And that was a really, really, really hot year in Southern Europe. And so that meant that the wines were going to be way more alcoholic, way more kind of big and bold and new worldy, even though it was, even though they were European old world wines. Whereas 2002 was like the opposite. It was like a really cold, rainy year with like torrential downpours right during the harvest and like kind of end of the season when the grapes are kind of in their maturation phase. And that meant that like those wines were really diluted and really tart. So I would, something to keep an eye out for in France especially, and also in Italy, is the kind of year to year, more so than in California or some of these other New World places where it's a lot more of a consistent, there's still year to year variation, but it's much more consistent. So
it sounds really temperamental.
Yeah. I mean, we know from growing things, it's one year is great and next year is not.
It must be just so hard to keep track of. So kudos to y'all who make the wine in France. Just incredible work.
On the plus side, there being quote unquote bad years means that people like us can get wines from 2002 and 2003, which weren't particularly great years for opposite reasons, right? Like 2002 was too rainy and 2003 was way too hot. And that means that we can still buy wines from 2003 today at like a pretty reasonable price, which is what we did in season 1. So pretty cool for if, especially since I don't know enough about wine to know a bad wine, if that makes sense. So
all wine is
those
good
wines
wine.
from 2003 tasted great to me. So anyway, one last thing to mention about France is that as we've kind of saw with that first wine, most wines, especially reds in France, are blends. And that's another reason that you don't see like what grape it is on the label quite as much, because it's usually not one grape. Whereas a lot of wines grown here in the US are like one grape. It's a Merlot. It's a Chardonnay. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's kind of an interesting thing too when you're looking out for wines in France. Just know you're going to be getting a lot of blends, and we like that, but it may not be your bag. So something to think about.
It's my bag.
Well, overall impressions of this guy.
Freaking delicious. I can't rave about this more. It's just warm and comfy and toasty and delicious. So please get this wine and enjoy it.
Yeah. My recommendation is that we stop recording and go finish the bottle. All right.
Bye.
Bye. We're back. We forgot to do the outro. We were so excited to drink this wine. I'm looking forward to drinking some wine with you, Brittany. This wine in particular.
Oh, and me too, Cyrus.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.